Hello, bonjour, namaste. Welcome to the Canada and India show, where we meet the people that make up the vibrant Canada-India relationship. Every week, we interview leaders in their fields to dive into who they are and what drives them. From the arts, to trade, to human rights, we will discover together how rich and diverse this relationship really is.
Hi, I'm Annie Dubé, Canada's Consul General in Mumbai, India, and you are listening to the Canada in India show. Thank you for joining us. Mannu Sandhu is with us today. She's an Indo-Canadian actress, model, dancer, and executive producer at the Vancouver International South Asian Film Festival. From migrating to Canada in her high school years, to working as a full-time correctional officer, to her first Canadian feature film, and now actively working for the Vancouver International South Asian Film Festival, Mannu shares with us today her insights to the Canada-India Connect and potential in entertainment industry linkages. Okay, so today's guest, I'm really excited. Mannu Sandhu is with us, and she's Indo-Canadian, and she is in Mumbai, and you're more and more in Mumbai than usual. First, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Mannu, you were mentioning you plan on being in Mumbai more and more often. You want to expand a bit on why you want to be in Mumbai, or what are you looking for?
Well, Mumbai has this attraction, this kind of magnet that pulls anybody that's been here, whether it be a month, a day, or 2 days. So you always want to come back. But I work in the industry of film and TV. So you need to be here if you want to work in the industry. You have to live it, breathe it, eat it, wake up with it. So you have to be here. So that's why for the last 2 years, I just plan to plant myself here.
You are from Vancouver, Canada, which is another great place for the film industry. And I understand you have a strong role in the Vancouver International South Asian Film Festival for the last 5 years. You want to mention a bit what the festival is about and how you make sure that it gains visibility every year?
Yes, definitely. So the festival was actually started by 2 young actresses of Vancouver itself that are now working in the Hollywood space. But about 8 years ago, they figured that they weren't really getting the parts that they wanted in the Hollywood scene. So, being a South Asian, it was very limited to what roles they could play. They weren't really looked at any mainstream roles at this point. Now it's changing because a lot of the stars are actually working in Hollywood that are skin or Indian. So that was our primary focus. So now it's mostly taking our South Asian content, themes, ideas, and talent to the mainstream audiences. So that's the theme of the festival that we have every year. And I've been the producer of the festival for the last 5 years, and it's grown. So what I did differently from what they were doing is that I introduced the Bollywood platform also into Vancouver. So films that are independent, that are really big, are able to actually come in, do the premiere into Vancouver, because I wanted that interconnect between India and Canada, especially for Vancouver and Mumbai, because we have so much talent there, like you said, that Vancouver's become a Hollywood hub, and there's kids that want to work in film, TV, they want to produce, do cinematography. So to open those doors, I wanted to experience it myself and then go and talk about it there. So it's been a really nice mix of, the culture there and here, and being able to go talk about it to the younger audience there. And most of them come here and they ask me, like, what do you do? How do I get in? So being able to guide them is really nice as well.
And the ecosystem in Vancouver is quite substantial in terms of supporting any newcomers, be it for co-production or for anyone who wants to be succeeding in the industry.
Mm-hmm. What I think is that BC government puts in so much money towards talent, and it's the most beautiful thing that Canada can offer at this point. I mean, I don't know of any other government that gives out money for the talent to go out and do what they would like, So that is the most beautiful thing. And we get a lot of grants as well. So we really appreciate the BC government that's helped us out for the last 5 years, especially BC Creative. We work very, very closely with them. Canada Media Fund, Telefilm. So these are like my strong holds that I've been working with, and I want to just keep strengthening those doors.
Excellent. So you have a mission that is quite clear, and that is great. And I know we're going to see more of you in Mumbai. You arrived in Vancouver, you were roughly 14 years of age, and you finished your high school. You became Canadian probably in the process. And then coming back to India after a certain number of years, what was the first thing that you noticed?
Well, I was quite young. Actually, I hadn't finished my high school. I started my high school when I came to Canada. And I remember the first day at school, I couldn't even pronounce the name of the school because it was Native Indian. And we didn't know anything about Native Indians at that point. So I remember trying to pronounce it, even the place we lived, and it was extremely difficult. And then saying it to a Canadian, they would laugh at you. They'd be like, what are you saying? Like, that's not how you say the name. So finally we learned the name. And I remember going to school and actually getting myself admitted into the school, then my siblings into school, and not knowing anything, how anything works. So you can imagine a 13, 14-year-old running around between schools, going to the bank. And it was an experience that I'll never miss out on. It changed my life. And I did some labor work the first year I was there as well. I don't know when I moved from here what I was going to get into. I knew I left my friends, some of my close friends, so I used to write to them all the time. But Canada just gave me this uplifting kind of moments where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do this. I don't know what that was, So I remember buying my first couch for my parents because I'm like, no, I want to work and I want to be able to. I worked all summer, and I remember buying my first set of couch. I'm like, this is my contribution to the house. So I knew like there was something coming that was going to be bigger. And then I started volunteering. So Canada really, really just kind of showed me the way. It was, I wouldn't say easy in the beginning, but it was just very beautiful how it all came through. There were some, there's parts where you get made fun of because you're a new kid in the block, you have long hair, you have a braid or whatever it is. But now that anybody, if they would see me from that school, they'd be like, who are you? We never knew you would do all this, And now coming back to India, I've been coming back to India since 2012 because I shot my first Punjabi movie then. And I've had this attraction towards India where I'm like, I just want to go back, even though I lived in the north. But Mumbai is a place where I want to kind of groom myself at this point.
And India is a country that is developing so fast and changing so fast. Is there anything that you're still trying to catch up with?
Yeah, the youth. The youth and the technology, because I'm like, what works now? We have like the largest population of the age between 25 to 29, I believe. And you're like, what works? What do they like to see? Because I'm constantly thinking of content to make myself. And I'm like, I don't know what works anymore because it can either go really, really far or like it's too boring. So I'm constantly putting my head together to figure out, okay, well, we can do this at the festival or we can do this at the festival or I can create content like this. So it's juggling your mind all the time to create new things that you can pretty much entertain your audience with.
Yes, that's definitely a challenge that will come for the years to come because half of the population or more is below the age of 25 in India. So it's going to be a constant struggle to have relevant content. I looked in your bio. You were working as a correctional officer at one point. How did you get into that business and why?
Well, I'll blame my mother for that. So, like I said, when I was younger, I wanted to do everything. So I started working at a political office and doing campaigns for one of the member of parliament. And I realized that I wanted to get to know Canada a lot better. And I thought politics would be the best way. And since I got into politics at a young age, I wanted to study it. So I studied political science and criminology in school, which then opened up my mom saying, well, you should apply for jobs. So she was constantly looking for jobs for me because she's like, you just have to get a job now. I said, well, let me finish my school first, So I remember I was 19 and I literally applied and I got in because they were hiring in a very big number. So I was actually quite surprised that they would even call me. And I thought it was an admin job because my mom was constantly pushing me. And I'm like, okay, mom, I'll apply, but I still want to finish school. And I applied and I went to the interview and it was at the jail, one of the oldest jails in Victoria. Now, this jail is supposed to be haunted. It's like 1914. So you can imagine like me driving there first, looking there. My parents are with me in the back of the car, okay? I'm going and I'm like, are you sure this is the right address? Because this looks terribly haunting. So we went there. My interview was still 2 hours after that. So we waited in the car for like 2 hours because we went to the island for the interview. And I was like, I don't know what I'm getting myself into, but whatever. I'll go with good faith. I go in there. I did my interview. And I'm wearing heels because I'm properly dressed up, not going for maybe an admin job. And we finished the interview and they're like, would you like to see where you'll be working? And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great. So then they make me walk these stairs down. There's a yard there, like how there is in a jail. And it's a maximum security. And now all of a sudden I'm in a jail area and it's 26 inmates there and they're on lunchtime. And I'm there wearing like super like office clothes with heels on. And they're all staring at me. And I'm like 19 years old. And they're looking at me like, yeah, she's going to work here soon. And they were actually making fun of me. They're like, how are you going to work with your heels? You know how Canadians are. Our jails are very casual. So they're actually making fun of me at this point. 6 months later, I'm actually working with all of them. So yeah, it was kind of nerve-wracking in the beginning because you're dealing with high-profile inmates, drug dealers, murderers. So I kind of found my way, being kind of fair to them and also being strict. So it kind of helped build my character within the jail system as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it built your character. Well, that's an experience that is rare and it's probably life-changing somehow. And you also modeled while you were doing a lot of other activities around, and this led you to film.
So what happened was at the age of 16, I modeled for a company and I really enjoyed it because, again, for me as a kid, there were a lot of mentors in my life, but I didn't know who to kind of look up to at that point. So I was like trying to find my own way of like strengthening my appearance or how I am in public or all those things. And I found that if I was walking on the ramp, if I was walking in front of people, anything that gave me butterflies, I would do. Like anything that made me nervous, because I'm like, that's where your growth is. And I didn't realize that when I was doing it until somebody told me, like, if you're getting butterflies, you're in the right direction because that's the only way you're growing. If you're not nervous, you're not growing. So every time I would go on stage, I would get these like butterflies and then I would build my confidence from it. So I thought ramp work really, really helped me. Then I knew I wanted to do that as I worked for corrections. So I didn't want to let go of that. And then I think at the age of 2021, I got my first film. So I had auditioned for a film. I got my first film. So juggling both of them, completely different, like working in a jail and then also being able to pursue acting. It was completely two separate things. But there was a lot of correctional officers that were doing it. They had two lives. So they would work in the jail and they would have a business set up on the side because it was a 4 to 4. We work 4 days and you 4 days off. So people always had things to do. Somebody was doing fashion. It's really weird. You wouldn't ever imagine it. One was like this big theater guy that used to work with us. So I think that we needed sanity in our lives. So we used to go and escape that by doing something. So I figured that would keep me a bit more sane. And then I just wanted to do this full time. I started training for acting and then I actually ended up not doing corrections anymore. So then a little bit of a balance.
So you have played specific roles in some movies. You want to go a bit deeper in your role in the Indian film industry and how it was for you?
First, I'll talk about my experience in my first Canadian film because it was a film that was not supported by our community at all, actually, the Indian community in Canada, because it was about rape and it was about a foster parent raping a young child. And I played that character. So there was a bit of nudity in there. There was a lot of kind of scenes that, she's committing suicide. So our community couldn't deal with the goreness of what happens when in reality that happens even in our community a lot. In any community for that sake. So there was a filmmaker that wanted to kind of bring that topic forward. And I remember getting a backlash on working on that film. And my director had already told me, it's a very hard role to play, but are you willing to do it, even if there's nudity in it? And I told him, I said, if I look up to an Angelina Jolie that does a lot of strong roles, how else would I get there, So I took that character. I was with the character for months and then it was my first film. So I remember even doing scenes for like 15 times or 16 times, whether like was me getting thrown on the bed, and it was a small budget film. So it's not like there was a lot of help around. So even me getting tossed on the bed like 15 times, I knew I could get hurt and I did get hurt. So it was experiences like that because we wanted to make sure the message went out. Some people really appreciated the film and some obviously went complete the wrong way. So after that, I knew there could be a message that could be sent through films. And then I just started to kind of focus on that. And I started working on content that really spoke to the audience. But I knew that I needed to get bigger to get the message out. So how could you get bigger? Either you work in Hollywood or you work in Bollywood. So I started getting some Punjabi films that I started doing. And I finally actually finished a Bollywood film now in Delhi that I worked with Sunny Deol. So, if you want to get your message out through cinema, you have to get to a position where people will be able to see you. So that is pretty much my determination of now being in the industry. How do you send your message out through cinema is through that.
So creating impact through the film industry. Did you see a lot of difference between the Indian film industry and the Canadian film industry?
Not in terms of work ethics. There could be some planning stuff and budget issues because Hollywood has immensely big budgets. So they can throw money around. And I find that Indian productions, they work on certain budgets. And for them, it's always how do we manage within the budget that we have. So what I found the difference was that Hollywood is so prepared. The pre-post is so good. in terms of they'll spend a lot of money in doing the pre-production, whereas sometimes doing pre-production in India could maybe not be so strong. And if you do that to the T, you could actually save money in your production and post. So that could be a little bit of a difference that I did see in the films that I have worked. It's strengthening the pre-production game in India.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to produce eventually and create even greater impact with your messages.
That's definitely something that I would like to do eventually.
What is the most important quality that you have that you think can bring you to where you want to go?
I'm just a very strong-headed person in terms of I take my values when I go to a place. So I've been sticking with my values, and I find that sometimes that could be a little bit more harder because everybody can use a shortcut. But I am the type of person, because if I want to be a mentor to somebody, I should be able to say, well, this is the route that I took. And if this is the one that worked for me, might work for you as well. So that's what's been driving me, is to make sure that my values are actually acknowledged first when I go to work for somebody. Of course, the talent, but also what I'm bringing to the table in terms of how my work ethics or all that. As Canadians, you know how we are when it comes to that. So.
And as you're building your leadership in, well, obviously through the Vancouver International South Asian Film Festival, but through your roles in movies, what is the most important part of being a leader? What is the impact you want to have as a leader? And what is the most important value you can bring?
For me, I think it's relationships. It's really working closely with companies that want to grow, whether it be independent, whether it be bigger companies. They need to see the value of coming to a place like Vancouver or vice versa. And if I don't have that relationship with them, it doesn't work. So for me, within the festival, the biggest thing is to be able to build really strong relationships with companies, directors, producers, with distribution. That is one of the biggest things that I want to work right now, is into the distribution channel, where Vancouver can be a space where distributors and buyers are coming to actually buy content from all the festivals. We want to make Vancouver a hub for buyers as well. In my leadership, that's something that I want to do.
So the impact you want to create in the world is really through that lens?
Well, for me, that's just a source that's been given to me at this point. And I find that when a lot of my team works with me, they understand that for me, relationship building is the biggest thing. So even this, how would I make an impact is through relationship building. So my entire goal of living in Mumbai or wherever I go is to make sure I have the strongest network with me when I go anywhere, because sometimes you don't have a power of the family or you don't have the power of the political people, but you have power of the people behind you. It's because you created a strong network. So that is what I think I'm going to live by for a very long time.
I'm quite impressed because you're still very young, but you have such a clear view of what you want to achieve in life. And you embody really the Canada and India relationship. You have both and you make really the best out of it. And I find that very fascinating, that the relationship will only continue to grow because of you and people like you. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for making this happen.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed discovering yet another strong linkage between Canada and India. I personally found Mannu's path via the Correction Center highly refreshing. I look forward to welcoming you next week for an episode with a guest host and a very special guest from our Trade Commissioner Service.
We are thrilled that you shared this time with us today. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on our social media channels. On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, we are at Canada in India. You can listen to all our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, so please do subscribe. Thank you. Merci. Dhanyavad.